Hey everyone, Radio from Smogon VGC here to cover some more of NPA 15 Week 1. Today we have a matchup between the Fortree Bravebirds and the Blackthorn City Blades. For the Fortree Bravebirds we have Prrot, otherwise known as Renzo Navarro, and for the Blackthorn City Blades we have Nails, otherwise known as Nick Navarro. Now both of these are incredibly strong players with numerous results across multiple years of playing Pokemon. Prrot is a multiple-time regional and special event champion, notably winning Players' Cup 4 back in the Sword and Shield era. Nails has been an extremely consistent player and creative team builder, one of the people who popularized that Dozo Team Lu concept in SV. And now we're going to see what hopefully will be a great match between them. Here at Team Preview, we can see some pretty standard comps that we've come to kind of see throughout Reg MA. On Prrot's side, we have the Floette Eternal Mega comps. This one specifically is a Calm Mind Floette, so using support from things like Sneasler and Incineroar to pivot and make sure that it gets consistent Calm Mind boosts off to overrun the other team, as well as some offensive support in the way of Guard Chomp to hit steals and the like, steals and poisons, as well as Basculegion just for a fast offensive option. On the other side, with Nails, we have a mix of Mega Charizard Y and Mega Aerodactyl, two mons that have been incredibly strong throughout this. Instead of the Floette Eternal, obviously it uses Sylveon as a non-Mega Fairy type, but otherwise very similar. As well, it has Kingambit, which works incredibly well into that Basculegion to try and give it protection from that where it otherwise might physically overrun. Alright, let's get into the battle. So we see Renzo immediately lead with the Floette Eternal and with the Sneasler, most likely looking just for an easy Calm Mind setup. And we see the Guard Chomp and Aerodactyl. Immediately Renzo pivots into Incineroar, probably looking to cover her for a Protect, and Nails just goes for a Rock Slide, hoping for some positive RNG, and immediately gets punished with a Dazzling Gleam rather. So in that case, usually what Nails was probably expecting was for them to go for a Fake Out into the Garchomp because it has more consistent damage and then go for a Calm Mind. Instead, Renzo reads that, gets a Intimidate off on both of the Mons, and just gets solid damage off here. Again, we see no Fake Out come out, Basculegion comes in instead. Aerodactyl goes for a Rock Slide again, really hoping for those flinches, but instead, because that Basculegion was not Choice Scarf, the Mega Floette, which oftentimes runs bulky no speed, this one actually is running speed and manages to outspeed that Basculegion and just kills it outright. And it's still not taking very much from the Rock Slide. Now, Nails is forced to pivot out to Kingambit to have an answer to the Floette, Garchomp coming in as well. So we see Garchomp go for a Rock Slide again, trying to get that positive RNG off the flinch and just getting nothing out of it. Now, Nails has a half a chance here because Kingambit got an attack boost, but realistically with both the Incineroar and the Sneasler and Garchomp at -1, there's just not enough that they can do into Prrot at this point. He simply can easily pivot around, take out those threats, and eventually get that Floette Eternal back in and just clean up. So now we see finally actually using the Fake Out, just fakes out the Kingambit, and this Scarf Garchomp again goes for Rock Slide, hoping to try and get something off. Prrot just takes the time to get the White Herb Brock to make sure that they can get Unburdened, so they can go faster than that Garchomp, and just takes out the Kingambit. That has Chople Berry, but it's not going to matter in this case. Close Combat simply does too much damage. Meanwhile, the Garchomp, again, spamming Rock Slide, but really just getting nothing out of it with these attempts to actually try and get positive RNG. And Nails, understandably, just forfeits. So what we saw there was that there was a reasonable matchup into the Floette Eternal, but Nails kind of made that first call wrong, expecting Renzo to play a little bit safer, probably go for the Fake Out and Calm Mind setup and just wanted to get chip off that, but got punished by Renzo getting just aggressive early, recognizing that the Dazzling Gleam was going to do more than enough damage for their purposes. And once they were in that position, they simply had removed already some of the most significant threats, leaving their own threats like Sneasler, Basculegion, and Incineroar to do just enough damage to what they had remaining. Nails, I think, also made, reasonable plays of trying to go for those Rock Slide flinches, because when you click Rock Slide like 5 times in a match, realistically, what you expect to happen is that you will get some flinches. The RNG should be in your favor. In this case, it simply did not work out. So now, we'll move to Game 2. So what we could potentially see here is we might be seeing some of a switch up from Nails, recognizing that potentially the Aerodactyl just wasn't doing enough damage with Incineroar, or leading Kingambit to protect it from Intimidate immediately. So something like that, or switch to Charizard Y to try and get more damage off on that end, while having a better answer into something like Sneasler, potentially. So here we go. And immediately we see Renzo be the same kind of thing, but we do see the switch up on Nails' end, bringing that Charizard Y that we expected because of the issues that they were having dealing with the Intimidate. This gives them a much stronger option, but here we have Float Eternal immediately Megas and gets flinched. Finally, those Rock Slides coming to work out for it, and Aerodactyl, recognizing it has the advantage of this turn, just goes for the Tailwind and gets a little bit of Heat Wave off. Incineroar able to eat that pretty easily, but switches out to the Sneasler. Sneasler just pivoting Fake Out again, but gonna take a bunch of damage. Ooh, and rough critical hit there. Yeah, so in that situation, the critical hit there, otherwise the Sneasler wouldn't have died, and potentially could have pivoted out to something like Incineroar next turn, allowing them to continue Fake Out cycling and dealing with this Tailwind a little bit easier. Now Renzo's going to get Incineroar in the next turn immediately, which is decently nice, but they're not going to be able to do that kind of Fake Out pivoting that they were doing before as easily. So while it gives them a more immediate way to stop Tailwind, in the long term that's going to be rough for them. That removes something that they really needed to deal with Kingambit, though Sun Boosted Flare Blitz should do quite well. And now they're just going to have to kind of use Floette as a major thing, but that's going to be really hard to beat that Zard. Alright, baits it with the best, bringing the Basculegion, but Nails just content to click Rock Slide and Weather Ball to do tons of damage, and gets another flinch. So RNG swinging significantly in Nails' favor this time, finally paying off for clicking it that much. Nails tries to call out the Basculegion switching in for the Floette. Floette just goes for a Calm Mind, which I think is very good, possibly one of the few ways to get back in the situation. And we see Incineroar there was actually finally able to eat its berry because the Aerodactyl died and it no longer had an Unnerve on the field, so giving it a little bit of health back. But in this situation, I think Floette's just a little too damaged, and once something like Kingambit comes in, it's going to be really difficult for it not to be able to just beat that Basculegion, and I doubt that Incineroar on its own will be able to close out this match. Yeah, so Floette survives because of that Calm Mind, and Charizard also survives on one. You see Sylveon come in, and so to be clear, this Sylveon is one that is running Quick Attack, so it does have the ability to actually kill that Floette immediately, but I think understandably just trying to see if it can bait out the Protect, but instead just eats the Fake Out with Charizard, and now Basculegion comes in. And so in this position, because it has the Quick Attack and this is a Focus Sash Basculegion, there was really nothing that Renzo could do here. They were just going to eat the Quick Attack and a Liquidation on each side, and there was really no punish that they were ever going to be able to do with that, because they need to hit at least 3 attacks, with Nails being able to move faster for some of them. So in that position, I think just understandably, Renzo forfeits and gets ready to move on to Game 3. Alright, Game 3. Now, we've seen Renzo basically play the kind of same combination both times. We may see him bring his own Aerodactyl here to try and match Tailwind, since he saw Nails pivot to that Zard Y and just use Aerodactyl for Tailwind on his own end, so Renzo may go for it to try and get a little bit more matching in the speeds, but we did see that the Zard Y was outspeeding the Floette there in neutral speed without Tailwind. So let's see. Alright, so we do see Renzo immediately bring out his own Aerodactyl. This one in case is Focus Sash, not Mega. And we see Nails switch up the leads as well to Sylveon and Aerodactyl. Immediately Megas his own Aerodactyl for the speed boost versus Renzo. So in that case, the Mega Aerodactyl does have a significant speed boost compared to normal Aerodactyl. He wanted to make sure that Tailwind got off and not risk being Rock Slide flinched. I think a very good play to try and make sure, because now in this case, he is actually threatening the KO against the opposing Aerodactyl. This opposing Aerodactyl, some do run Wide Guard, but this one is just running the standard Rock Slide, Dual Wing Beat, Tailwind, so it can't protect itself from a combination of, say, Rock Slide and Hyper Voice. That should be able to KO. Just goes for a safe Protect here, And Rockslide misses on the Incineroar, I think really hoping for that chip, and probably just going to get an easy parting shot out now. Yeah, parting shot's the Sylveon. Basculegion comes in, it can threaten with the Aqua Jet into Aerodactyl, giving more of a chance of Renzo's Aerodactyl to actually attack. In this case, we see that the Aerodactyl is still faster than the Sylveon. Not super surprising, Sylveon can be EV'd to outspeed normal Aerodactyl and Tailwind, but in a lot of cases, people would much prefer to run bulk and just rely on something like Quick Attack if they really need the speed. In this case, it really harshly punishes them because Aerodactyl is able to click Rock Slide, even against the Sylveon in opposing Tailwind, and simply gets a flinch on it, which is brutal, because in this case, getting a Hyper Voice off there, even at -1 special attack, would have broken the sash and done significant damage to the Basculegion. This position still not horrible though, but they can start bringing in... Yeah, just goes for the Rock Slide there. I'm a bit surprised there that they didn't try and just get the Focus Sash broken on the Aerodactyl of, say, Kingambit, and maybe Sucker Punch it next turn, or potentially pivot in something else, like if they have the Garchomp or the Basculegion in the back. They know that Prrot, since it's Choice Scarf, it was locked into Aqua Jet, so I don't think there was really much of a threat there. But losing the Sylveon, I think, is pretty huge, because you do need that to have some pretty good spread damage, especially while you're in Tailwind. They do get a free switch in here, able to bring back their own Aerodactyl, which once again has the speed advantage, and most likely, yeah, just clicks Rock Slide here to get rid of that Aerodactyl. But the thing is, their Kingambit has been too chipped by the Aqua Jet from Basculegion, and just goes down to a raw Moonblast from Floette. And now Incineroar is able to pivot in, just get a attack drop off. We're going to see Last Respects come out here into the Incineroar pivot, just calling it wrong. It's rough at the end there. Aerodactyl trying to go for a double protect, does not get it, and just once again able to spam Dazzling Gleam. And in this case, there's no way out for Nails, and Renzo cleans it up. So I would say across those 3 games there, we saw both players do some good adaptations to the opposing teams and the strategies they were seeing. In Game 2, I think Nails bringing that Zard Y was a really good option, as well as recognizing in Game 3 that would probably prompt Renzo to bring the Aerodactyl in response, especially with the opposing Tailwinds. Unfortunately, just didn't work out. Even with the Tailwind up, the team was just a little bit too slow and wasn't doing enough damage. This can be one of the problems with Aerodactyl Mega. Even with Tough Claws, Rock Slide at -1 just doesn't do a whole lot of damage. So even with that Tailwind up, they were just not putting out the offensive pressure, and they were really, really struggling to get things in that could do that damage, because Sylveon was too slow, and Gambit was just not hitting hard enough most of the time, because they hadn't got the chip they needed earlier. And by the time they were able to actually get their Aerodactyl Omega in, again, they had just simply taken too much, because Renzo was able to outbulk them with the pivoting and with just clicking Rock Slide a bunch of times. So I think a really good match between both players. We hope to see them continue their skill and their good runs in future weeks. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. If you've been enjoying our content here, I recommend you like and subscribe so that you can see more videos from us at Smogon BGC. Thanks.